Today I'm going to be changing the oil on this 2014 Dodge Challenger SXT Plus. It's got the 3.6 liter V6 engine in it, so I'll show you how to do it. Sometimes it's a little different between the V6, the V8, all those different ones in different years. So there's a couple little things that are slightly different with this car than some others, and show you how to do it. So here are the items that you'll need. I've got 6 quarts of oil. Pennzoil. This particular one meets the Chrysler standard. This is the 5W20, and it meets Chrysler standards on it, and yeah, it meets the Chrysler standard, the MS6395. So that's an approved oil. I've got a Wix air filter. I've got a Wix oil filter, not air filter. I've got some gloves, funnel, a rag, a drain to catch all the oil in. You'll need a 24mm socket, a 13mm socket, a 10mm socket, and you might need some adapters depending on which wrenches you're using. I've got a breaker bar, I've got a regular wrench. I couldn't find the torque spec, so I'm not going to torque these to spec, but most people don't do that on these cars anyways. But coming from a Porsche background, I'm used to torquing to spec. Anyways, that is what you'll need to do the oil, so let's get started. You're gonna take your ratchet and your 10mm, and you'll notice this is the guard. And you'll notice that it has a number on it. So I'm going to take them off in the number. I believe it's mainly for putting it back on so you torque it correctly, so that it's all even. But there's number 1. And each one, you'll see there's number 1 on this one. And there's number 2, 3, and 4 right there, and each one is numbered so that you can easily take it off. Once you loosen it, you can just take it off with your hand. We'll take all 4 of these off, and then I will take this whole guard off so that we can get to the oil drain plug. Just take the plate and you can move it back, and it comes right off. Now you'll see right here, it's our oil drain plug. It's on the driver's side of the car, and we're going to need our 13mm to take that off, so I'll go grab that. Next, you're going to take a breaker bar and use the 13mm on it, and you're going to have to put it in there. Let's see if I can get the actual thing, and boom. You should be able to break the torque fairly easily, unless someone like went crazy on it. Now you want to get your oil container. This should hold at least 6 quarts. This one holds 10, so we should be good. And you want to put inward pressure on it. This oil will be hot. Now this particular oil holder has a grate, so the plug falls in, that's no big deal. If yours doesn't, you'll have to make sure to catch it. So yeah, I'm putting inside pressure as I'm loosening it. You can see where, as I'm loosening it, I'm putting pressure, I'm pushing in on it, and there we go. Whoa. And if you misjudge, that might happen, so you need to get a rag and just clean up that excess oil there, and clean ourselves up a bit, but that could happen. So make sure you have it out, because that really shot quite a bit further than the hole, and then we can adjust it as needed. Actually, I should have used a cardboard box. Sometimes putting a cardboard box just helps to get that kind of stuff, but now it's starting to get where I thought it was going to be. And so we'll drain all that, and I'll clean up this mess, and then we'll go to the next step. One little tip to drain the oil while you're draining the oil is to remove the oil filler cap. Just set it off to the side. And that will allow pressure and just make sure we get as much of the old oil out as possible. As you'll notice, the valve cover is already gone on this one. We took it in because we got free oil changes for a year at the dealership where we bought it. And while that sounded great and everything, about a couple weeks after the last time they did it, we opened the hood for some other reason and it was gone. Called the dealership, they have no idea where it is, so it's anywhere from $100 to $300 to replace that, depending on whether you want just OEM or whether you get an actual stock part. And so just a thing about whether you should do it yourself. Yes, it's cheap, but sometimes things like this happen. And we didn't open it up right away. I guess if you have someone do it, open it before you leave the dealership, because now we don't really have any proof that they did it, because they could say you've had it for so long, even though they're the only ones that touched it. So just a thought, when you do it, if you want to keep the cover so it looks nicer, make sure you check afterwards. While that's finishing to drain, it's a good time to go ahead and take off and loosen the oil for the oil filter. It's in this little container here. This is where you'll need your 24 millimeter. I know it's an American engine and yet it uses all these metric spaces, but just take your breaker bar and it takes it off pretty easily. I've got a rag right here just in case any oil spills. Once we've loosened that enough, should be able to just get that out. And there's our oil filter. And you're gonna wanna look at that and make sure it looks like the one that you got. So now's a good time to go ahead and inspect that. So, here's our Wix oil filter. We got our O-ring. We've got an oil filter which definitely looks the same. So it should just pop out. It might take two hands, so there he goes. Just pops right out. New one's going to pop on right there. So we can do that now. And then it's still draining the last little bit of it. Almost done, it looks like. So I will let that finish draining. And then after that, we'll put in the oil filter. I like to put a little oil so it doesn't, we don't have a dry start ever. So we'll put a little oil. You'll see that in a second, just to be safe. So while that's still draining, I'm gonna go ahead and take off this ring here. So I got my screwdriver. I'm just gonna pry it, get it up there, and then work its way off. So I can work it up or down since I already put that filter on. Might be easier down. And then we're going to put on the new ring that's in here. One thing with the new ring that you're going to want to do, I'm going to take my glove off for just this one little bit. One thing you're going to want to do with the new ring is take it out. And I like to use fresh oil. Some people, I've seen people use used oil, and I just don't like the idea of using dirty oil. So what we're going to do is take the ring here, and we're going to put our finger in there, get a little bit of oil on it. Yeah, nice clean oil, and just kind of lubricate it all over. Try to, and what that's going to do is make sure that our seal is as good as possible. It also might help it get on a little easier, but mainly it's for the seal so that we can have a good seal there. You also, before you start screwing things back in, you might want to take a rag and close this up so that it doesn't spill, because we're going to use this again in a second. But take a rag here and kind of clean. Just check for any dirt stuff. Looks pretty clean. It should be. It's a pretty new car, but you know, you might want to just kind of make sure you got any dirt off of there. And then run your ring down and onto it. Might be a good idea not to get so hasty like I did and put the oil filter on right away. I might take it off if this gets too hard, because you don't want to damage it. But to get your finger on it, using two hands may be a lot easier than this one hand thing, but we'll try it. Once you get your finger on it and pull, let me set that down and see if it helps. Sorry if this is a terrible angle, but with two hands it is a much easier job. You get one on each side and kind of work your way in and get it on there. A lot easier. And so now that that's got that oil all on it, it's all ready. Kind of check, make sure there's no dirt. Looks like we're pretty good on this one. So it also looks like we're done draining. So we should be able to take this now. We'll take the engine oil filter cap. We'll put the oil filter cap back on, or the oil drain plug, I mean. Put the drain plug back on. And also with the drain plug, it's also another one that you want to make sure you got a good seal on these things. So take your finger, a little bit more oil, just kind of rub it on there. After making sure it's clean, I already made sure it was pretty clean. And then just rub it on there, rub it on the little seal around it. Okay, take the drain plug after you put all the oil on it to get it all around. You got a good seal, and then we're going to put it back on after the oil's drained. It's still slightly drained, so it'll be a few more minutes, then we'll get up under there. Also, once you get up under there, once it's all drained, any oil you spilled, you're going to want to probably clean up because you're going to be laying on this. So I'm going to clean my hands real fast and get ready to finish this baby up. All right, the next part, we're going to put the drain plug back in. So just hand tighten it at first. Get it all the way in there. And then once we get that in there, kind of clean up around it, make sure it all looks good. And then we're going to take our ratchet, the 13mm socket, make sure we're on tighten, and just kind of tighten it. So that's pretty tight already. So what we're going to do, I want to make sure it's on all the way but not over tightened, so that looks good. And now we'll go up to the top. And now, as you see, I've got a oil funnel, right here for the oil that's going right into where the oil filter is going to go. And I'm going to just put a little bit, not too much, in there. And that will just help keep it from having a dry start. So we're making sure it's lubricated. Now we're going to put on the oil filter. All right, now we're going to put the oil filter in there. You can just put it in, tighten it as much as you can by hand. Now, make sure it's on fairly tight, but not over tight. So, okay, so when you reach torque like that, obviously if you have a torque wrench, okay, I think that's probably good for there. You don't want to over torque it. And what we'll do is we'll run this after we fill it up, and we'll make sure, we'll start checking for leaks everywhere, but it doesn't look like we have one. What you're also going to want to, after you do an oil change, after you drive it for about 1,000 miles, you're going to want to check the oil, maybe even less. Just check it from time to time, make sure that there are no leaks here or in the drain plug, so that you don't accidentally, have any issues. All right, now we're going to move our funnel to the oil filler, And we've got our 5 quarts of oil here. I'm gonna put all 5 in. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna start the car, move it off the jack stands, or move it off the ramps in our case. If you have jack stands, you can just remove it. That is one advantage to the jack stands. And once we do that, we are going to be able to, once we move it from the jacks, or once we take it off the ramps, then we'll fill it up the rest of the way. But right now, I'm gonna fill it up with the 5 quarts. The car's capacity is 6 quarts, but don't want to overfill it, so we're gonna do 5. We put a little bit into the oil filter, and there may be a little bit that's still in the engine that didn't drain out, so we just want to make sure it's better to have it a little underfull than overfull. So, but we know that it'll take a full 5 quarts, so put that in, whole thing. And try to get as much in there. The funnel really does help. Done this before without a funnel, and yeah, it's not anywhere as good. So definitely use a funnel, especially with this angle. So got that. If you did spill any dripped off the funnel, just take your rag, kind of wipe around anywhere where any oil may have accidentally spilled. And then we will take our filler cap, do this before we come back and top it off. And what we should see, now we're at an angle, so the oil level is not going to be exactly right now because of the angle where we are. And so when you check the dipstick, it's going to be a little tricky at first, because if you check it right now, you're going to see that it's going to give you a false reading. So that's something to keep in mind right after you check it. Now the dipstick is on the opposite side of the engine. It has a little oil thing on it. There we go. And what we're going to do is take the rag, take it off, and put it back in. Take it, check the level. It is just below the bottom line right now. I'm actually going to leave. It's just below the bottom line right now, and I'm actually going to just leave it there, because once we move this to an angle, we have a little bit of oil in here that'll move it up, and once we switch the angle that it's on, it might fill up quite a bit more. So we should be okay. We shouldn't be too terribly low right now because of the car being on the ramps, and then once they're off the ramps, we'll get it level and we'll check the oil level again after running it, and then we will fill it up to a proper level. It's better to be a little low than too high, but you don't want to be too low either. So we'll get that taken care of. Now's a good time to get up under the car, and if you haven't already, take your oil collector, and as you can see, that initial part made a big mess, but that happens sometimes, and that's why we have this. You can also use kitty litter and the like, but I'm gonna take a towel for now, and then I'll clean it with something heavier duty in a little while when I move the car out after we're all done. But for now, we'll just take this towel under here and get it. Fortunately, we're not like anywhere where it's going to go into the water supply, which is really bad if that happens. So once we move these ramps and everything, I'm going to have to do it all again. So yeah, and put that on the towel just to make sure we get the bottom of it, any oil that's still on the bottom. But that's just for cleaning. You want to get everything out of the way. And oh, we need to, it's an easy thing to forget. Oftentimes shops do forget this. We want to put this back on. So let's get up under there, and now that we got everything out of our way, let's get that back on, and then we'll be all done other than checking. Next thing we're going to do is replace the skid guard. It's got this little piece that helps us kind of position it. And this is another thing that, you know, sometimes two hands are better than one. And let's just move the camera down so we get two of them. And so now what we're going to do is take this here inside. Gotta go up under a little bit, I believe. Yeah. So maybe a little tricky at first. Kind of move this thing down so that we can get up and under it. And come on. There you go. It's getting closer. There's each side kind of has a tab. There we go. So you have to line that up. And once you get it lined up, look for number 1. This one's number 1. So you want to put that in. I just hand tighten it for now. Get it started. So I'll hand tighten number 1. Then come up here where it says number 2 and tighten that one. Make sure we got it in the right spot so we have a hole. And we'll do the same for number 3. Last, not least, number 4. So now we'll just take these and we will, now that we've hand tightened them all, we'll get our socket wrench out with our 10mm socket on it, and we'll use that to tighten it up. So once you get that all the way in, now we can go and take this baby off the ramps. All right, so we've taken it off the ramps. It's now level. So now is a good time to check our oil level. So we're gonna, the engine's also been run, so let's let that oil circulate. Good news is the oil warning light did not come on, so there must be at least enough oil in there. And I went through, kind of checked everything. You want to take a rag or something, or gloves that you can see. I checked around seals and it doesn't look like we have any leaks, so that's a good sign. You'll want to check again and say 1,000 miles. It looks like we're a little low, like I thought we might be. So it looks like we're about half a quart low. So that's why we got this one. Get our funnel in our little filter. Take the oil and carefully get it in. You don't want to put too much in. We'll put like half a thing, a little more. And just slightly more. And then we'll go check our oil. This is kind of what you'll do. You kind of let it sit for a second. Come back with the dipstick, clean it off. Put it back in there. Check the level. Still a little low, but it hasn't gotten all the way in there. So kind of clean it off, wait a second longer. Just be patient. It's better to be patient than to find out you overfilled it and that the oil seeped down later and you're way over. So you want to be a little under that line. We're a little under the lowest still. So give it just a second longer and check one more time, and then we'll put a little more in if we're still there. Yeah, it looks like we're right at that bottom line. So I think we need to put probably another almost whole quart in, or half a quart in. So got a little bit more left in the bottle, so I'm gonna keep that in there and see if we need it. We might end up needing the whole bottle. The full capacity is exactly 6 quarts. So in theory, our 5 quart and our 1 quart is exactly how much we need. But because we don't know that every single drop of oil, you know, there might be a little bit left, and it's better to have a little bit of extra old oil than too much new oil. So give that a second longer and start the process again. Definitely coming up. Might have to put just a bit more oil in there, but we'll wait a little bit longer. I'll check again. Oh yeah, it is. I think we're going to need to put the rest in, but we are very close to where we need to be. So I'm going to put the rest in. Just a little bit left. And let that sit, and then we'll check our final level. And it's okay for a little low. You want to probably drive it a little bit. Keep an eye, make sure the oil light doesn't come on. It's not a bad idea to have an extra quart just sitting in the car just in case. And you want to drive it for a little while, and then check it periodically. See if after you've done an oil change, if any of the seals are not sealing up correctly, the drain plugs losing oil or anything like that. Just a good idea to keep an eye on it. So that's all the oil, and it looks like we might be just about right. A little under, but some of it might seep back down because I had the car running for a minute, so it might take a second for all of that to seep back down. And yeah, we're right in the good range. Right, not quite to the very top, but just a little under it. And I think the rest of the oil is probably going to seep down, and it will probably get right very close to that top range. And again, better to be a little under than a little over. So now it's time just to clean up you would put your valve cover on, or if in my case I'll order one. But that's basically it. As you can tell, it's really hot in my garage, so I'm sweating like crazy, but not a hard job, pretty easy. Slightly different. You know, the way that the oil filter is, that housing is a little bit different than some others, but not a hard job, and something you can do yourself and save a bit of money. All the supplies cost about 30 bucks. So the nice thing is, if you do it yourself, even if it's 30 bucks to do this at a garage, at a dealership or something, you might lose your engine cover. So that costs another 100 bucks or so. 100 to 300 depending on where you get it. So make sure you do it yourself, because you'll know it's done right, and you might save a little money, but even if you don't, probably won't lose a car part. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.